Something that always strikes me about deaf worlds are the smells. Not entirely malodorous. Rather, many are aromatic, fragrant, but all definitely pungent. I can only imagine how strong the scents must be outside of my field. What proportion of the deaf world bouquet am I not able to appreciate because it would result in rapid infection, necessitating drastic medical intervention? Neonesia has a distinct scent profile from Zindequin and Zanzibar Mapaya. Zanzibar smelled much more like my recollection of Earth, which I suppose sort of makes sense, given that it had no native ecology, and all its species return introductions, even if those species came from a completely different terran biome than those I am familiar with. They still have enough in common, scent-wise, to be identifiable as coming from the same cradle world. The smells of deaf worlds, logically, should smell like death to me. The smells of every organism fighting desperately to survive. The smells of those that fail that task, having their nutriment greedily reabsorbed into the ecosystem by 1,000,001 decomposers and detritivores. The smell of those who've been thus far successful, attempting to procreatively replace themselves before their luck runs out. Somehow, despite comprehending the nature of the all-out war for survival, raging all around us as we make our way from the ship, through the forest, to the beach, it doesn't smell like death to me, the way it once would have. There's a vibrancy to it that I'm aware of now, a verve, an ebullience that I didn't comprehend as a younger woman. I land from that flight of thought and, from atop Victor's shoulder, turn my head to Jenny, warily asking, "Are you satisfied that you're finally getting your beach day?" She blushes and answers, "I was happy to wait. Wouldn't have been in very good taste to run off to the beach when thousands of refugees were aboard, would it?" Brunhilde puts an arm around her girlfriend, resting her hand on the far side of her waist, pulls her close and smiles down. "You can be disappointed about the beach days we lost, Dormouse. That's allowed. None of us will think you're saying you'd have preferred to trade lives for beach days." The small Terran woman smiles back and says, "Okay, I'm a little disappointed by the days we lost, but I'm happy we're getting our beach day now. Plus, being given permission to land the ship on the planet, walking distance from a gorgeous beach, sort of gives it a resort feeling, you know? We wouldn't have got that if we'd been staying at the ODR and taking transports to beaches. Silver linings, I suppose." Her musings are cut short as her girlfriend effortlessly hoists her into a bridal carry. The golden-haired Amazonian gives the flustered brunette a contented kiss before saying, "You're extremely cool when you try to be positive, you know. Also, how come I've never seen this outfit before? It's surprisingly conservative for you. Knowing you, I was expecting a swimsuit made out of slightly wide pieces of string." "How dare you?" laughs the small woman with mock indignation. "You would impugn my honor as a lady?" "You're what now?" retorts the larger woman. Her glacier blue eyes crinkled in a smile. "Ugh," scoffs the brunette, playfully batting the side of her girlfriend's face. "If you must know, I fabbed it recently, based on some photos I looked up for reference. More two-piece with a strapless top and a sheer gold sarong." She gestures to the respective parts. "As to why it's not just slightly wide pieces of string," she smirks, "I find that a little mystery is sexier than none. I see you went for sporty, huh?" The athletic blonde cocks an eyebrow, sardonically, before responding, "These are my swim clothes. You don't like them?" Looking away, the small woman answers, "I didn't say that. I was definitely thinking it's super hard, though." Here I interject. There's so much nuance baked into the choice of swim attire for you Terrans. It seems like a tremendously stressful thing to subject yourselves to. Why not just go entirely nude, given that your species' normal inhibitions regarding exposure of skin appear to be suspended in this social context? I gesture to the convoy of Terrans, displaying several times the normal quantity of skin. They all laugh, and Victor, one of the least stressed Terrans present, corrects, "It ain't suspended, more just sort of modified. We're happy showing a bit more skin than we would in, for instance, a town centre high street, but that don't mean it's a free-for-all. There's personal taste to consider, but we've a pretty consistent sense of when a swimming costume gets a bit too provocative. While public nudity ain't illegal or anything, most folk would consider it in bad taste, even at a beach." Yes, that is indeed too much nuance for me. I still can't comprehend the notion that, if the garments you're all wearing right now weren't made of waterproof material, that would make them underwear and you would suddenly be embarrassed to be out in them, despite them being exactly as revealing, I answer. A chuckle ripples up the convoy. I turn to Hazuka, who's nonchalantly traversing the path between the blue foliage, dressed in a two-piece, similar to the ones worn by Toon, Emiko and Jenny, only with no legs to pass through. The lower part is just a band. Hazaka, you don't seem to be taking due care with the path. Am I missing something, or did you forget the lecture that Kaz gave you on Zanzibar? I asked, concerned. The attentive expression she wore when I addressed her breaks into an amused smile as she explains, "You are missing something, Captain. Zanzibar was a dead world, terraformed with life from a Class 12 death world. This is a lower-end Class 10. Pathogens on this planet won't be that much worse than ones from Sahak, and Neonesian thorns are much less likely to be able to pierce the scales of a Sahaz than Terran ones. I can be a bit more relaxed." "I'm sorry, Class 10? I say incredulously. "The planet that swallowed an entire island from beneath us within hours of our arrival is barely a death world?" Victor answers, laughing. "Yeah, it ain't a great look for this planet, but you gotta remember, most days it ain't drowning islands with tectonic activity. In fact, I guess the only reason they were happy to send their rescue fleet out of system for training without a substitute is because they reckon the chances of them being needed were so negligible." "Well, I would make a quip about even death worlders underestimating the deadliness of death worlds, but I feel like there are many ways in which that could be turned around on me, so I shall say nothing," I chitter. At that moment, we reach the edge of the forest. Stepping from beneath the azure leaves of the canopy, we find ourselves on a spectacularly white sandy beach, around 500 meters long, 50 meters wide, surrounded on three sides by cerulean palms and on the fourth by a crystal blue ocean. There are many delighted gasps, whoops and hollers from the group, clearly admiring of the breathtaking beauty of this scene. "Whole beach to ourselves!" exclaims Victor with satisfaction. "Let's find a spot near the water." A suitable spot, judged by criteria I can't discern, is located. Victor places down the metal spheroid on stilts and the stasis box he's been carrying, which must weigh around 40 kilograms between them. Opening the spheroid, he reveals a caged shell with a hollow space beneath it. "You realize," I say wirily, causing his head to turn upwards to look at me, "if you had cooked your burgers on the ship, you could have put them in the same stasis box you brought them in anyway, and spared yourself the need to lug that antiquated cooking apparatus and sacks of solid fuel for it here. Also, why, oh why, is my head of health and safety cooking with combustion rather than just using a heating element to cook the food?" He smirks. "Yeah, Cap, I realize. Reason I didn't use the stasis box to transport and pre-cook or use a heating element is because it ain't the authentic experience. Cooking them on the beach is the done thing." Giving a Terran shrug, I respond, "Doesn't matter to me. You're the one who had to carry them here." "Yeah, and it was doable thanks to a gravity field," he answers smugly. "Easier than it would have been, but not as easy as it could have been," I retort. "I told you, it ain't the way," he says with both amusement and finality. I hop down from his shoulder, and the group begins setting up. Later. "It won't work," insists Jenny, cross-legged in the sand, Quing Long curled around her shoulders in such a way as he forms a backrest. "But if it's the strongest material," muses Krish, as he tends her burger along with his own and Yuan's garlic bread on the dietary requirements grill. "Diamond isn't the strongest material, it's the hardest," she asserts. "If you try to build armor out of it, it will shatter like glass the moment it suffered an impact. Hardness isn't what you want for impact protection, you want toughness. Durasteel is tough. That's why battle armor is built from that with Nereid diamond inside." "But," says the slender man, screwing up his face in thought, "I'll tell you what. If you still don't believe me, I'll bring a 30cm by 30cm by 2cm sheet of diamond, and another of steel. It'll have to do, as civilian nanoforges can't do Durasteel. I'll bring them to the beach with me tomorrow, and we'll get Hildy to take a crack at both of them with a sledgehammer. You'll see. The steel will dent, the diamond will shatter." Here Victor interrupts, sternly, looking up from the main grill on which he's tending the burgers that Krish isn't able to, for religious reasons. "You are not shattering diamond on the beach. I know it don't look like many people come here, but how do you feel if you found out that some kid had to call a medevac from here because they cut their foot in the shard of diamond you missed? Find somewhere to run your experiments on the ship and clean up after yourselves, afterwards." Rolling her eyes, she answers, "All right, Grandad," with an amused, mocking tone. Brynhilda interjects, "You think you can mock the sportiness of my swim clothes 1 minute and the next volunteer me for sporty tasks that you're not up to?" With a wry smile. "Can't I?" asks the smaller woman, raising her eyebrows and fluttering her eyelashes. Pursing her lips, the blonde responds, "You definitely wouldn't be able to if you were just, 1% less charming. Someday you're going to meet someone who's not affected by your cuteness." "Already happened," volunteers Son. "I personally think you're the cuter one, Samus." Turning her attention to the rangy Twashani woman, her eyebrows raise skeptically. She responds, "That so?" Jutting out her chin with a mischievous grin, and putting an arm around her singularly bulky girlfriend, Zon answers, "I have a type." "Burgers are ready, come get 'em," shouts Victor, breaking off the interlineage flirtation. As Brynhilda, Fran and Zon rise to retrieve their beef burgers from Victor, I see Jenny's attention following the tall, slender woman, her face unreadable. It only lasts a moment before she looks back to Critch's smaller grill and takes a swig of her cold, dew-covered tepashi. As Critch begins serving up the veggie burgers, Emiko sits next to Jenny and asks, "Hey Jenny, I hope you won't think of being rude, but..." "You want to know why I'm a vegetarian?" she answers coolly. "Why, yes, how did you..." "Always comes up sooner or later. You want to know why on earth I would deny myself meat when being lab-grown is not like the cows had to suffer?" Emiko nods thoughtfully. "Yes, I mean, I understand that for these two..." She gestures at Krish and Juan. "It's religious, but it's not religious for you, is it?" "It's not, and it's not environmental either, given that energy is effectively free." She turns to the purple-eyed woman. "I hope you won't think I'm being rude, but would you eat a burger made of lab-grown human if I told you it was super delicious?" Emiko's eyes narrow as she calmly but immediately answers, "No." "Why not?" asks the smaller woman, stroking the head of the contented dragon. "Well, it would be cannibalism for one thing," she smiles. "No, it wouldn't. You wouldn't be eating the flesh of a living, breathing human. You'd be eating meat grown specifically to be eaten. There should be no ethical issue with eating it, right?" Taking a bite of her beef burger, I'm guessing to subtly buy herself a few moments to consider, the glamorous woman responds, "There are many health issues with cannibalism. As if that fact is both common knowledge and common sense. I'm not particularly interested in needing to drag myself to the bedroom and explain what kuru is, or how I acquired it." "Okay then, what about a Roquali burger? No health issues with that, are there?" Emiko looks to me, appraisingly. "Leave me out of your thought experiments," I chitter. "As an obligate frugivore, I shall be no help in unteasing Terran ethical quandaries regarding the consumption of lab-grown flesh." Emiko nods, turns back to Jenny and answers, "I understand what you're saying, but humans and Roquali are both sentient, sapient, sovereign species. Cows aren't." "So you'd eat a dog burger?" queries Jenny, pointedly but not accusingly. Here Sam interjects, "Not eating. Fancy mummy. Small mummy, please." His translated tone indicating that he isn't sure whether being eaten is actually a possibility, but not carrying the appropriate amount of concern for that scenario in my view. Both women turn broad genuine smiles on the lovable semi-sapient and reassure him that him being eaten is not at all what's being discussed. Satisfied, he resumes begging Victor to allow him to have sauce on his plain burger, lack of sapience not allowing him to recognize an utterly lost cause. Returning her attention to her interlocutor, Jenny says, "The squeamishness you just felt about eating human, Roquali and dog burgers is how I feel all about meat. It's just that simple. Haven't eaten meat in nearly a decade." Contemplatively, Emiko responds, "I see. Thank you for engaging with that, even though it's obviously a very boring subject for you." "No props," smiles Jenny, reassuringly, though in a way that entirely avoids touching her upper face, before turning her attention back to the 1.9-meter blonde and 2.2-meter Deshwani at the grill. Many burgers, some sunbathing, and a game of volleyball later. "You're certain? Absolutely certain?" I address the man, more than twice my age, with concern. "Never been more certain of anything. He's exceedingly well trained, Captain. I'll give you my word," responds the warrior cleric. I sigh. If Victor approves, then I won't prohibit it. The elder man turns to his young student. "I'm really glad you thought about it at all, Cap, but if Shifu says it's fine, then I think it's fine. Plus, he's tracked, right?" The warrior nods. "Naturally." "Then I say go for it." The teacher smiles before turning his face to the azure dragon and saying, "Qinglong," and raising his hand. The creature lazily opens his eyes and rolls them towards his owner, before stopping and widening them. There's a subtle shift as the 4.2 tube of Death World muscle tautens, near imperceptibly. "Go!" says the monk with a corresponding gesture to the water. I thought I was ready for the speed with which that monster would streak away. I was wrong. The shock of how quickly that animal goes from being cold in a naptime pow to being in the water 40 meters away actually induces autonomic fight, flight, freeze reactions in me, as I'm unable to tear my attention from the undulating motion with which he is now propelling himself through the water, and my heart's raced into the quadruple digits. The speed with which he is able to move through the water is comparable to that which I'm able to achieve during flight in a shallow dive. In a spectacular display, the serpentine animal breaches the water, and his entire body clears the surface in a breathtaking arc, before re-entering with barely a splash. "Remember to breathe, Captain," chuckles the monk, "though I'm glad I'm not the only one who sees how magnificent he is." Cocking a brow tuft, I answer, "Magnificent or not, if your pet decides to stray away, you may be responsible for introducing an ecosystem-decimating invasive species." He smiles. "He won't. Plus, if I did, we could track him down with his tag's data. He's also a lone male. He wouldn't be able to reproduce on this planet." "Unless he turns out to have been a she, with a litter in her belly, wouldn't be the first time. Or unless someone else brought a female to this planet, thinking the same thing you did." He laughs. "You can rest secure in the knowledge that, biologically at least, he is male. Females Shulong are around 40% bigger and a bright vermilion colour. Though you are right about the however remote possibility of him running into an escaped female, or you would be if I weren't absolutely sure he will come back to me when I call him. Just relax, Captain. Enjoy the display." I turn my attention back to the frolicking animal. "Shame Fluffy turns out to be as saltwater averse as she is freshwater," frowns Victor. Dr. Mink disdainfully responds, "Water is much less fun when your entire body is covered in waterlogging fur," gesturing to indicate that this is also why she has refrained from immersing herself. Victor shrugged a shrug of fair enough, before looking to me. "How come Corey turned down the beach trip?" I sigh. "Carcinization." Dumbstruck a moment, Victor eventually manages to laugh. "I'm sorry, what?" incredulously. "You heard me," I answer wearily. "He's worried he's going to evolve into a crab from a trip to a death-warp beach," he replies, not containing his mirth at all. "No," I correct. "He was worried he would be attacked by something that had evolved into a crab, and being surrounded by death warders would mean nothing. The culprit would have snipped off a foot before anything could be done." A slightly abashed look crosses Victor's face as he says, "That's actually not quite as ridiculous as I thought. Still pretty ridiculous, though. Crabs ain't gonna just snip off a foot of an animal they ain't evolved to predate." "You're preaching to the choir, Victor. I told him he was being ludicrous, but he wouldn't budge about it." Victor frowns. "You guys gonna be okay?" I wave my wing placatorially. "We'll be fine, dear boy. I'll have a calm discussion with him when I get back." At this point, Brunhilde interjects. "Hey guys, the Shings are here, the fishes too. Must have been for a walk together since they're not coming from the ship." I turn to see that, indeed, the auburn-furred Felgetian couple are walking beside the newest additions to my crew. Alcinat Dimitrescu Fisher, and Mark, King of the Squirrels Fisher. The 3-meter-tall woman stands in a black one-piece, backless to allow her enormous Chiropteran wings, normally concealed in her Terran-style sleeves, free motion. The man stands over a meter shorter than his wife, in a pair of trunks, his build and musculature comparable to Messiah's, and a shock of modest scarlet hair at his fringe. "Ha!" crows Dr. Meek with gleeful venom at Messiah. "Looks like your girlfriend and boyfriend have become bored of you. They're shopping for replacements." Calmly, placidly, and with a nonchalant smile, Messiah answers, "They're not my girlfriend and boyfriend. We have a casual arrangement. If they want to pursue options outside of it, I'm very happy for them to do so." I see Mink's eyes narrow suspiciously behind her sunglasses, as she apparently tries to discern any deception. I'm just contentedly thinking that it's a good thing that the new hires can finally get to know the rest of the Terran contingent, whose mental health they have been hired to maintain, when I turn back around and see only the Shings making their way across the sand, the fishers' backs disappearing as they continue to make their way, presumably, back to the ship. "Oh, hell no," I mumble, under my breath, as I get up to follow after them. "Where you going, Cap?" queries Victor after me. "Oh, I just want to have a little chat," I say, containing my anger. "No need to follow." I beat my wings and am just about able to get airborne due to the atmosphere being unusually thick for gravity so low. Not that it's low enough to allow me to go without a compensator. I give a brief downward greeting as I pass overhead of the Shings. I angle upwards to clear the canopy top. Then, through the cyan palm fronds, I see them. I bring in my wings to pass through a gap that would otherwise not be wide enough, and alight in the path behind them. Still a little out of breath from the effort of flying on a death world, if just barely, I call out, "Dr. Fisher," causing them to turn in surprise. "On the beach. We're having a little social gathering to celebrate the successful transfer of the last of the refugees. I invite you to join us. The pair share an awkward frown with each other before the woman nods, as if giving permission for something. The man turns back to me and says, We won't be joining you guys. In his voice so baritone that it's in danger of falling off the bottom end of my hearing register. Anger flares up in me and I'm about to shout at them. Just my luck to settle on antisocial therapists. Ones who, upon hire, demand a room away from the rest of the Terran Enclave and never visit socially. Why do they think I'll allow them to counsel people they obviously don't like, or at least don't wish to form friendships with? If they don't want to be near their future patients, then perhaps they ought to seek employment elsewhere. I'm about to say all that, when I stop myself, take a deep breath and say instead, Alright, what am I missing? Huh? Says the deep-voiced man with the scarlet on raven hair. I'm clearly missing something, so rather than me making a fool of myself, why don't the two of you just tell me, what am I missing? The two of them show another look before the woman answers this time. You seem to be labouring under the misapprehension that therapists should be friends with their clients. That it's best for us to consort socially. This is not so. I balk. So therapists are meant to be adversarial with their patients? That seems quite odd to my way of thinking. Surely you should be friends with those you're meant to help. The ivory-skinned woman shakes her head and corrects. No, we're not supposed to be enemies. We're allowed to be friendly. It's just being friends presents a boundary issue. A boundary issue? Could you explain, Dr. Fisher? I ask skeptically. I can, she confirms. Terran therapy relies, for maximum effect, on talking openly, honestly. Ideally, they should feel like they can tell us anything. If we're friends, that immediately alters the dynamic. Our opinions are suddenly ones that matter. There are things they feel they can't tell us. It gets in the way of counselling them effectively. I mean, there's definitely a minor boundary issue already, with the fact that we have so many people from the same social group to be split between just me and Mark, leading to the possibility that one of them might tell one of us something about another that the other wasn't ready to have us know. But given that it's simply not practical for you to hire enough therapists for every one of them to get their own exclusive one, plus we shouldn't and won't be divulging things said by person A to person B in the first place, the Evers Committee rubber-stamped the arrangement, but we won't socialize outside of sessions. It would unnecessarily impede our ability to provide effective counseling. There is a long pause as my brain works to parse all that information. Then I sigh. I should have known you would have your method behind your apparent madness. There always is when it comes to Terrans, and Terraphiles it seems. You had better not disappoint me. You had better turn out to be the first-rate graduates you seemed to be when I interviewed you. Oh, we will, says the man, affecting cocksure self-confidence. Slapping his shoulder with her hand, Wingclaw, the spellbook woman says, Mark, with mock horror. Ignore him, Captain. What he meant to say was, we will do our best and thank you again for this amazing opportunity. I give a wary smirk before saying, I'm sure. Anyway, off you go before you create a boundary issue. The two smile and turn back to the direction of the ship. I turn back to the beach. As I cross back over the threshold of the forest, I see Yuan cupping the cheeks of his water dragon with his hands, playing affectionately as the flexible, convoluting body of the excited animal roils this way and that in what is readily apparent to be a play version of the test he administered to my crew the first time we met. As I approach, I raise my voice to say, It seems you were right, Master Yuan. He did come back.